Welcome back, everybody. I am Laura Justice, Executive Director. You met me earlier today, assuming new folks haven't showed up, but if you have, welcome. We were just had a momentary lapse in getting started because we do have captioners here today. We've just had a little bit of a confusion of getting our captioner here with us for this closing session. Welcome back. I hope that you learned as much from the afternoon breakout sessions as I did. I thought they were truly remarkable. We have structured today, one of the things we always try to do with this symposium is really straddle and integrate issues of research, practice, and policy to bring everything together. And so we have a very special guest here to close us out at the end of the day. I am very happy to introduce you to Dr. Barbara Boone. And Dr. Barbara Boone is our colleague here at Ohio State University. She is the director of the Ohio Statewide Family Engagement Center here in the Ohio College of Education and Human Ecology Center for Education and Training for Employment. This Family Engagement Center supports children's development and academic achievement by providing tools and trainings to both families and schools to build effective family-school partnerships. So our vision was, going back, we started with Professor Harris's regression equations and incredible theory and practical suggestions regarding how to engage families, terrific breakout sessions on the same topic. And then we wanted Dr. Boone to really pull everything together for us, given her perspective running a large family engagement center. So I'm going to turn it over to her, and she's gonna run with this. She invites you to put questions and thoughts into the chat so she can engage with you, and then I'll come back at the very, very end just to say goodbye and thank you for being with us today. So let me turn it over to you, Dr. Boone.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity to give these final remarks. And I do plan to ask all of you to really, let's make this a collective sort of putting a bow on today. So I'm going to ask you to reflect with me, to think about shifts in our thinking, to wonder together, and to kind of to think about our, where do we go from here? But, first I want to tell you, I'm a beekeeper. I wanted to be beekeeper since I was 12. I work with bees. I harvest their honey. I share it with friends. I belong to a beekeeping club. I read beekeeping magazines. I even wear bee jewelry. I'm into that. And I'm also a student and practitioner of family engagement, like beekeeping. It's been this long-term study, personal and professional pursuit. And I don't mind thinking about family engagement any time of day. I'll talk about it with anyone. It really fascinates me. More importantly, I really do believe family engagement in education is one of those many things that sets the stage for children's learning and their future endeavors. But there's been this common phrase, this troubling common phrase, and I think Dr. Harris said it, and it's this: when families are involved, schools improve, and kids do better in school. It's said a lot, and we just sort of throw it out there and we all sort of nod, but it implies this kind of magic. The parents and caregivers simply, you need to get involved and kids are going to do better and our schools are going to get better. It places a lot of responsibility on families. And I think that while we may agree sort of in this general premise, families have a role, we also agree that, there's a science of learning. There's this world of parenting. There's this study of instruction and understanding human development, and that all have depth and complexity to them. And the study of family engagement is also complex. And we have to continue, as we have today, to kind of open the black box that's between parent and home and child success, and shine a light on what are those behaviors, the settings, the attitudes, the practices that make up those many, many factors of family involvement or family engagement that we need to understand. And what are those factors? We can't just lump everybody together, but as Dr. Harris did, we need to sort of tease things apart, and let's look at gender, let's look at culture, let's look at race, let's look at grade level, geography, development. Let's look at all the different families and different people who parent, mindsets, home-based, community-based, role construction, efficacy. There's so many things. And not to mention how our explicit and implicit biases play out in these. So we're also informed by data, the work of the experts at starting points. I was torn that I couldn't attend every session, but I attended the experts at starting points. Melissa Johnson, Jordan Cartwright, Sierra Murray, and Tasha Watkins. They're experts who really engage with families. They're putting practice in play that build reciprocal trust, really modeling in practice that trust benefits student achievement. And we've learned about that from Drs. Hoy and Dr. Goddard and Dr. Beard here at OSU, that they embrace their community and their community embraces them. They don't do family engagement to families, but they build partnerships with family to build lives that the families and communities desire. They're sort of building these communities that nurture these learner identities that Dr. Harris talked about. They're a great example that a school that is of the community, in the community, for their community. There's not an us versus them. There's no blame game going on. Right? They're all on board together. So I want to take some time to put a bow on the learning together today with you. I've had a chance to share a few thoughts with you. I'm going to have a few more. And finally, I want to share with you a little bit about the Statewide Family Engagement Center here at the end. So let's move on to this idea of reflection today with me, if you will do that. So let's think about some themes from this symposium. Let's move on to, so it's been a great opportunity for learning. Boy, I hope that you have felt tension, that you felt challenged. That's what learning should do to us. Every field, every serious field needs us to do that. And family engagement is a serious field that we need to have understanding. We're recognizing today family engagement and education, especially in these early years, is a point of importance to our recognition, due our intensive study. And we've heard some key points from Dr. Harris about, substituting this myth of, I know this guy who, with research and with data. There's too many practices that we do that are ineffective. Absolutely, so many that are ineffective. So we need to sort of shift and be willing to drop practices and pick up new. This sort of idea that our environment matters, that home matters, that parent occupations matter. And this idea that child identity is really critical. And families need guidance. And they look to schools often for that guidance. So we really need to be careful of the guidance that we provide. It needs not to be ineffective guidance. And I think I heard from the experts, I heard about building trust, reciprocal trust, about owning the challenges, not what can I do, no blaming, but what can I do? Can I be more skillful in my practices? Our families learning that our families need a different kind of support. We need to change our practices. It's not school-centered, it's family-centered on this approach. And so I want to hear from you. What are key messages that you heard today? Will you use the chat? I see Luann saying, Dr. Harris gave me a whole new perspective of looking at parent involvement. I was surprised. Great. We want to be surprised. This is wonderful. What are the key? What are these themes? What are other themes? It's not magic. Yeah, absolutely. There are things that we do. These interventions, these practices are important. I learned about the beneficiary voice of families. Building trust and relationship. We learn so much when we listen. Thank you. Simple changes can yield great results. Yes, Mary Beth, thank you for saying that. We have learned also that sometimes it's a micro intervention, we call them, just a very small practice can make, and data is a major driving force. Thank you for that. And changing policy, Kim, involving communities and honoring families. Thank you for that. Dr. Killister taught me not to take notation on what families are saying, but instead just use their quotes directly. That's beautiful. Affirmation matters. Will you shift with me now? We have a limited time together. So I want to shift on to this next idea of what are our shifts in thinking? What are our shifts? When we work with schools at the Statewide Family Engagement Center, when we often are talking about the shift. Let's shift our thinking. Let's shift from ineffective practices to more effective practices. We try to put that in very understandable terms. So I'll complete this statement for me. I used to think, but now I think. I used to think this about family engagement, and now I think. What are some shifts that you're making because of today? Tash, you want to know about practice. That's important to go from theory, discovery to practice. Thanks for sharing that frustration. Family engagement is important. All family engagement is not created equal. Absolutely. I used to think it was just families not caring enough. I understand that it's a systemic racism creates an unlevel playing field. Thank you for that. It's not all family engagement, it's good engagement. I used to think that family engagement was a fix. Perhaps it's not. Are we fixing families or are we engaging and building trust with families? I want to get into child advocacy. Thanks for Thomas for sharing this model. We need to shift. We need to grow as a field. And I'm grateful for symposiums like this one that sort of help us to do that, challenge us. Quality of parent engagement is more important than quantity. Child policy and health literacy. Thank you for that. Individual solutions will not fix structural systems. Thanks, Holly. Okay, let's keep moving on. This is great discussion. Thank you all for just making this really. I'm from hearing for. I love that we're hearing from you and Bella, and that you're able to read these as well. We need to provide tools for better outcomes. I used to think family engagement leads directly to student success. And now I think there needs to be this both engaging in families in ways that work for them and in changing systems that, that ensure success of oppressed classes. Thank you. Thank you for that. Individual solutions won't solve structural solutions, as said by Dr. Harris. How do we help families navigate systems that will help them to be more effective? Yes, and how do we change those systems? How do we change the systems? Yeah, thank you. Let's spend a little bit of time, perhaps, wondering together. And Meredith, thank you for sharing this model that connects the dots from family engagement to student achievement changes. I love how you all are sharing more resources here even now. This is great. All right, so we're shifting our thinking. That's important. That's important for us to learn and to grow. So let's wonder, because I know we have researchers here. We're learning from researchers. We're learning from practitioners. We need to be sort of open to and have our eyes and ears open to learning from all different directions, all different spaces, all different experiences. Classes do not themselves think of themselves as oppressed. That your disabled son does not see himself disabled. He sees himself as empowered, and we can do the same with families. Thank you, Tess, for that. Let's shift now to our wonderings. All right, because I think all good research leads us to wonder more. The more we study, the more we think, oh, we don't know enough. And I saw that at least with the folks from Starting Points and the FACES agency, that they're continually discovering, continuing to swish, and they're continuing to wonder, how do we do this better? Dr. Harris opened up some big questions for us that we need to study more. He's challenging us there. What do you wonder? What are the wonderings that you want to see us discover? Thanks, Tom, for sharing about this. Why do parents become involved? It helps us to sort of open that black box in a sense of, like, I think this definition of involvement as well. I mean, certainly Dr. Harris sort of had a definition that he was exploring. And I think I think he also challenged us to say, is all of that parent involvement? Is all of that family engagement? Let's define family engagement better. What else are wonderings that you have from today? How can we take what we've learned to policymakers and decision makers? Absolutely, that shift, taking our learning not just to practice, taking it to policy, taking it to systems change. I wonder what specific supports we can share with parents to help them academically successful involvement. Thank you, Amanda. I think that was one of our conclusions that Dr. Harris left us with, is that families can do things. Let's give families guidance. What is the guidance? Who can give it to them? Who are they hearing that from? And how do we inform that conversation? I wonder about school level factors that make a partnership more challenging. Yeah, so the practices of schools and how do they sort of factor into this parent involvement, student identity, student achievement equation? I think we're all part of the family. We all bring up something different to help with engagement. Thank you, Kim. How can we make schools more accessible? I wonder how family engagement would or could be improved if the teacher workforce were more diverse. Thanks, Janie. These are important questions. And these are, they have policy implications. They practice implications. And we, of course, we need to study these more. We want to inform them with research. Thank you for this discussion. Let's shift again. I'm keeping us moving here. I hope that you're all right with me, sort of moving us along here. So the more we learn and explore, oh no, we're moving on to our now what. Sorry, I want to make sure that I'm in sync with the slides on your screen. I am. All right, we got so many things open on Zoom. All right, so we heard some themes in today's presentations. We gained some insights, we gained some questions for sure. So let's talk about how we apply shifts in our thinking or respond to the challenges we've heard or apply practical ideas we've learned today. So let's each take sort of an individual look and say, what impact can I have? How can our family engagement practices be more accessible, equitable, supportive? How can we change how we think, which is where we're going, and how do we then use it? What are the practical takeaways? So now what? What have you been inspired to do in your role as a researcher, a policymaker, a practitioner? What have you been, and even tomorrow? All right. How do we convey messages shared by Dr. Harris effectively to parents so our attempts have been the desired results? We need to learn more there. I think one of our commitments I would have is to learn more. To take what I've learned about family engagement and affirming them as a parent back to my staff. Future teachers maybe would be more successful if during their preparation, they had more experience working with minority and low-income children. So, and their families, I would add. So what implication does that have for pre-service? Thanks, Joan, for sharing the webinar and continuing the conversation and sort of expanding it beyond what we, what is, like who could be here today? How can schools be accessible to families, but also respectful to teachers in the long days they already have? Absolutely, these have been some tough years in our education system. It's a challenge you struggle with, Samantha. I think we share that with you. And I think that that taking this away and how does it inform the current sort of struggles that we're having? It's important. Because I think one of the big things is that if not all things are impactful, if we have limited time, if we have limited resources, then we need to do the things that are impactful. What else? What have you been inspired to do even tomorrow? Some big questions, Tom. How we're staffing schools and in the way we leverage those staff to meet the desired outcomes for students. Thank you. Joan, you're going to be digging up more of the resources and information shared here to improve your organization's practices. Wonderful. Just that the work that you do to support families enrolled in your Imagination Library program. All right, thank you. To keep my staff, thank you, Angela. We have ways to reach out to families during the pandemic when we don't see them as often in person. Yeah. One of the things I learned from the folks at Starting Points was their persistence, that they didn't give up and say, families don't care, they didn't show, they're not responsive. They kept learning and changing their practices, and they persisted, and they are successful because of that persistence, I believe. Thinking of ways to reach out to families during the pandemic when we don't see them, talking more about how diversity can affect the education of our children. Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, I hope that this learning moves from head to hands, that it impacts our studies, it impacts our policy, it impacts research, it impacts our practices. Thank you. How to drop non-significant practices. Thanks, Patrice. All right, thank you for this. If you want to keep rolling with this in the chat, please feel free. I think what I'd like to do now is just to share with you a little bit about the Statewide Family Engagement Center. So we are a federally funded statewide family engagement center. There are 11 statewide family engagement centers in the US right now. So we support family engagement education by equipping, empowering, and inspiring families, schools, and communities to work together in support of education and well-being, and in particular for Ohio's children and youth. We have a national impact, but our focus, our eye is truly on Ohio. In our work at the Statewide Family Engagement Center, we do something, we listen to families. And Hadley, let's go ahead and move to the next slide, because I really want to share with folks. We listen to families. We think family voice is important. We think that we learn from multiple directions, and we learn from families as well. And we capture those sometimes in different ways, in different stories. We capture them because we have families on our state advisory council that inform our work. We also invite them to share their input with us on short videos in our Family to Family series. And I'm inviting you to hear from one of those family members. She's a state advisory council member for us. Her name is Pearl. And Pearl is a grandma in Ohio. And there are many thousands of grandparents in Ohio who are raising school-age children. Listen to Pearl's story.
My name is Pearl. I am with the Ohio Family Center, and I am raising 5 grandchildren. And my grandchildren have school problems. They have 504 plans, and they are on medications. But we are working very hard with the school to make sure that everything is going smoothly. And it is. We have no problems too much. The school is very helpful with whatever the children need. And that also helps the children. It also helps me. It's a struggle. It's a very big struggle. But through it all, we are making it. We are going through step by step. And every day it gets a little better. And what I like to do to encourage some of the grandparents out there, because I never thought that I'll be raising grandchildren. I thought after my children was grown, this was it. But unfortunately, life gives us something different that we don't want. Just be encouraged to stick with it. You know, the kids will either love you or hate you, but it's okay. But you know what you have done for them. You know what you are doing for them. And in the long run, when they get older, they'll appreciate it. They appreciate it. You know, there are resources out here for us parents, for us grandparents, on websites or whatever that we can go to get even extra help that we need. There are other kinship care grandparents meetings that they're holding now, and you can get involved in that, and don't feel that you are alone with it, because at this day and age, you're not. This is something new for everyone. So I would just like to say that kind of be strong and just keep pushing on as much as you can push on. Take a step back, take a breather, and go back forward. Thank you. My name is Pearl.
All right.
I am with.
Well, there we go. Thanks for listening to that. As some of you continue to ask questions and how do I convey what I learned today to others? You know, and Katie, you're saying, where are the parents? And you know, what we at the Statewide Family Engagement Center do is that we look at the data of Ohio. We look at what we learned from researchers like Dr. Harris and others, and we say, how do we translate this? How do we take the discovery of research and how do we bring it into our classrooms, to our kitchen tables? How do we make change in the area of family engagement in particular? And so we do that in a number of ways. And so I hope that you'll check out our website, and that's another way for you to connect with us as practitioners, but also researchers. But so we look at family engagement in multiple different ways. So Hadley, if you would just kind of start sharing some of these on the screen, and I'll follow as you pull them up here. So we do literature reviews. We take all the research in a certain field of family engagement, and then we try to say to practitioners, here's what we're learning from this research. And so we've done that in middle school family engagement and early language and literacy. And we've looked at that around children's exploration of careers in the middle school years and understanding how to support and engage with grandfamilies who are raising grandchildren. We work with the Crane Center and the Schoenbaum Family Center to reach out to families of young children about their support in their child's education. We offer a summit every year that addresses family engagement and from multiple different perspectives. We also offer a community practice for family engagement professionals from around Ohio called the Family Engagement Leaders of Ohio that has just a wide range of professionals from Ohio and outside of Ohio that just gathers regularly to say, this is what I'm working on as a practitioner, and we learn together from one another. We put out research briefs every month that we call our news and guidance that you can find on our website and subscribe to as well. So we work hard to work with researchers at Ohio State to support new discoveries in the field of family engagement, but then also to take that and then make that applicable for our administrators, our teachers, our school counselors, our family members, our grandparents, our foster parents, all of our families, sort of looking holistically at our families. So, and just finally, I think this is what we're aiming for. You know, we often say to families and to practitioners to help them understand the importance of family engagement, that it's a lot like working at mission control. In order to launch this rocket, we needed a whole lot of people with a whole lot of different types of skills to get on the same page together, to persist, to work together through challenges, through discoveries, through challenging data and research, to launch this rocket. And it is much like the field of family engagement, that we need researchers who challenge us. We need grandparents who inform us. We need practitioners who persist and innovate and show us the way in their practices. We need many different roles for us to be able to launch all children, all races and cultures, all income levels, to their best and brightest futures. It takes all of us working together. And I think today was a huge contribution to that. So I appreciate the fact that I got to provide these final remarks. It was an honor for me. And I'm going to hand this back over to Dr. Justice. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. I get to just very briefly I'm going to start by thanking all of you who have come and spent your afternoon with us. And it's because you care about this topic, the children, the families, and how can we do our work more effectively. And I'm just going to steal the words of Pearl from the video Dr. Boone shared with us. We're all just going to keep pushing on. Thank you, Professor Harris, for coming all the way to Columbus to be with us today. Our CEO, Tanny Crane, the greatest champion of our work. Our wonderful speakers, Dr. Boone, Dr. Killen Stewart, Dr. Ganeshian, and Miss Melissa Johnson. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. And I just want to invite all of you to stay engaged with us at the Crane Center. We do this because we care about you. We want to serve you. We want to be a resource to you. Stay in touch with us. Our big event, the Distinguished Speaker, will be this spring, and then we'll be back this time next year for the 9th annual. And if you have feedback or thoughts, please be in touch with us. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Take care.